build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance.
Hello everybody, welcome to Longbangers. I'm Matty.
And I'm not Colin.
You're not Colin. John.
Hi, I'm John. Good. How are you?
I'm alright, better than I was yesterday. Anyway, what I discovered yesterday, John, football aside, is that at 45 years of age, I am no longer able to keep pace with two 19-year-old students when it comes to drinking.
Try to keep up with Josh.
Aye, it was it was a misguided idea to start off with, on reflection. So I'd had a shit night's sleep going into it. Right, I don't know if it was because you had like kind of your pre-derby nerves and things start playing on your mind, and I knew I had to be up early, so the sleep wasn't great. I probably had about 3-4 hours tops. As I was getting my breakfast, the taxi pulled up, so the taxi was early, so I never got a chance to eat breakfast. Missed the first train, never missed the train, got down to the train station in plenty of time. First train that came, 3 carriages at Inverkeithing, it was fucking full. Couldn't get on it. It was like, you know, when the doors open, and it's like one of these Chinese trains where everybody's like that.
Start on it.
And there was a couple of boys that were pushed in, and I was like, maybe I could push in here, but fuck that, I'll just wait for the next one. So waited for the next train, got that. Because I was in later, I never had time to grab food on the way down to Easter Road. So all I ate, really, all day was the Scotch pie that you got at hospitality. And well, we left after the game. I think we stayed for a drink. I went right to the train station, got on the train, which was also busy. And I have to say a shout out to the Inverkeithing Hibs boys who were on that train for making it a fucking damn sight better train ride than it could have been with their songs and their like buoyant mood. It was like we'd won the game. It was well decent. So kudos to them for keeping the spirits up and keeping the jambos that were on the train quiet as well, because there was a fucking few of them there. Did spaces, got off the train, put Twitter spaces on, realised something. I don't know, did you tune into it?
No, I didn't.
No.
I don't know what I was doing actually.
There was a couple of boys that we let on. So the first guy that came on, could hear him. The next two, I couldn't hear them, but everybody else could hear them. So I started talking over, and Colin was on. He's like, "Oh, you're talking over them." I was like, "Oh, well, I'll shut up then. You take over." So Colin took over. I pretty much stayed on mute the rest of the walk home. Got in, waved to the wife, Jess, came up the stairs, laid her in the bed. Might have fallen asleep a wee bit, heard my name get mentioned. So woke up in time to wrap up the spaces, fell back asleep again. Then woke up thinking, oh fuck, did I finish that spaces? Is this still recording? Thankfully I had ended it and it wasn't just recording endlessly bits of me snoring. And then spent the next few hours sort of spewing till again about 1:30 this morning. So a decent day, to be fair.
An eventful day for the wrong reasons.
Aye.
Surely at 45, you must know a Scotch pie isn't going to see you through a session like that.
Yeah, I think it was the lack of option though, because I don't know if you could buy food when you were there. I thought it was just they had pies, but I kind of figured if they put pies out, everybody got a free pie and a pint when they came in. You had to be token for it, so there wouldn't be. They'd know how many pies they needed, and there wouldn't be extra ones to buy. Sort of just assumed that would be the case. And it's not. There's nowhere nearby. Like you said, that you could pop out. You could maybe go up to the retail park at Meadowbank and got a KFC or something. But
how did you get down to the ground for the train station?
Just pegged it.
And there was nothing nowhere to get food on the way down. No, I know I sound like your dad here, but
it was time because we wanted to get down to watch the Rangers Celtic game.
Okay.
As well. So, and also we're conscious that if we got down too late, we might not get a seat. Didn't fucking matter because they'd oversold it anyway. So the time we got down there was no seats as it was. We'll maybe talk about that later. Like the whole beanbag experience was not the best. I think Hibs maybe dropped the ball on it a wee bit. I think if they were happy with it, but I wasn't too impressed with it.
Unlike them at the moment, dropping the ball anywhere.
I know.
They're doing so well on the pitch and off the pitch.
Aye. Well, it was like you couldn't get a seat. You had to stand. So we're standing where we did the live shows. I was sitting before we started recording. So you got a shelf to put down your drink. Because it was so busy, anytime when I went to the bar, somebody was trying to take our space. So you're always kind of have to like fend folk off. Folk walking in front of you are trying to see the screen. The screen was too far away, and the TVs aren't huge, but they're big enough if they made the picture full screen. But they've got a big banner that adds along the bottom, a big banner that adds down the right hand side. So the actual game itself was in like just like a bit more than a quarter of the screen. Like, just show the game, put it on the TV. Like, I kind of the importance of advertising, but they surely aren't making that much money advertising a couple of hundred folk in a bar while the game's on. They could have showed those adverts and run through them in between the games. Like, so when they finish the Sky Sports game, could have just had the slideshow adverts up if they wanted to kind of get that revenue. Aye, wasn't the best. I don't know if I'd do it again unless there was some improvements. That would be my feedback to Hibs on that. They need to make some changes. I'll write to my MP about it, as I usually do.
It's funny, I was talking about, I'll not bore you with the details of what I'd written to my local MP, but I was talking about it yesterday. In fact, it was about fucking energy prices, the bastards.
Had you actually written to your MP?
Aye, I asked them, like, what's your incentive to tackle rising energy prices when you can claim the fucking thing on expenses?
A good fucking question. Let us know how that reply goes.
I got a bog standard automatic reply, which was some shite, which basically means I'm never getting a response. But I'll maybe try and chase it up.
Aye, you should do that. Anyway, how was your day yesterday? You were at the game.
Do you know what? It started off really, really nice, and it was going really, really well up until about 8 minutes past 3. So Raymond, friend of the podcast, he had organised us to go to the Murrayfield for brunch, I suppose. And we got there about 11 o'clock, had a couple of drinks, had a cooked breakfast, sat and watched the Rangers Celtic game, and then headed for Tynecastle about 2, back at 2. And then, like, I actually thought that was really, really early, but then when you got there and they got that fucking stupid cordon and police and staggered entry, people going in, it was a wee bit of a shambles.
It's always a shambles getting into it, though. In and out of Tiny's a fucking joke.
I think, to be fair, like, I mean, you were stood about and you were starting to get antsy, as I think any football fan does, immediately, you know, in the sort of half hour before kickoff. It was moving, like, that you could see that the police were sort of parting their horses and they were letting a group of folk through. And then you got to a bunch of sort of barriers and you were going through it, and it seemed to be that there were different stewards doing different things. Some guys were giving you the full one treatment, other folk were just sprinting through. And then when you got into the stadium itself, this is going to sound like proper old man chat, but I did actually get a wee bit concerned at one point because I could feel like a crush developing behind me and nothing in front of me was moving. And it was simply because everyone, it seemed, was trying to go into the first sort of entryway.
Yep.
Whereas everything beyond that was absolutely fine. But aye, Tynecastle needs to sort it out.
Aye, it's no the best. I've experienced that last time I was there as well. And you're like, in this day and age, there shouldn't be any sort of risk of football fans getting crushed. Like, and again, there's an element of responsibility for the fans themselves, like to use more than one fucking entrance. But football fans don't do that. Can they just want to get in? And
I can't remember exactly how many, but I think part of the problem is that they need to try and manage the flow of people to, is it about 5 turnstiles maybe?
5 or 6, I think there, aye.
There's no many.
And they're all close together as well. It's not like, if you look at Easter Road where the turnstiles are there, but they're fairly spread out across the stand.
Yeah.
The tiny ones are all, well, tiny, if I remember right.
Aye, and you get funneled down, I don't know what the name of the street is, but you get funneled down and you take a wee right and that's you. There's no space really for people to queue.
Mm. Aye, right. Okay, enough about the day. We'll talk about the game and things that Hibs. So I think the last couple of episodes we've done, we've tried to pick out a couple of key talking points to kind of discuss. And I suppose what we'll kick off with isn't necessarily about the game itself, but probably around the noise, very valid concerns for the support after the game, right? And just a big, John, I'm going to ask you, right, what the fuck is going on with Hibs now?
I wish I knew. I really do. So another friend of the podcast, Dave Graham, he messaged us recently saying that he wasn't. I think he said he had tickets, but he wasn't going to the game. He was away watching it somewhere else. He's saying that he's feeling a bit apathetic towards Hibs at the moment. And I've seen other people talking about that on message boards and Twitter and what have you. And I wondered whether that was just people vocalising their frustration about shitty results or whatever, or whether it was genuine. And I started feeling the same way myself, but I've also been busy the last few months, so I've fallen out of that habit to go and see Hibs. But the last couple of games, like I've not stopped watching them.
Hmm.
Just that I found my time at a little bit of a premium, so I've been watching them more on the TV. But I have in the last couple of games. I went in the Celtic game, wasn't able to make the Livingston game because I was fucking building furniture for the Bairns Christmas and what have you. And so I took relatives to the Hibs Celtic game and sat chatting with one of my mates throughout it. Hadn't even realised that the full time whistle had gone. It was that just boring shite passed us by. And I think I'd commented at the time saying that most of that game was like the Rangers' second half, just sitting off, unable to string passes together, pose no threat whatsoever. And yesterday was much of the same. And I'd had a chat with one of my other mates on the way into the ground yesterday saying, like, how are you feeling about Hibs? Are you feeling any sort of apathy? And he said no. And I was trying to work out whether what I was feeling was genuine or not.
Hmm.
And then Yuan had that chance, just before half time,
Yeah.
did a typical Yuan, couldn't make a decision, couldn't pull the trigger, and I just fucking walked out because I know, like, obviously we've had a bit of laugh because the last time that I left Tiny, Hibs came back to 2-2 back in 2016 and went on to win the Scottish Cup. And I thought, well, fuck it, I'll make that sacrifice. If I have any sort of bearing in the world of football, if the football gods are looking on me, then I'll make that sacrifice so other people can have a fucking decent day. But as it stands, I can't be fucked with this because it is shit. Like, I am seeing what a lot of other people are seeing, which is just that it's shite. And actually, the comments for Lee Johnson after the game yesterday suggest that there's a bit of a gulf between what he's thinking, what he's trying to do, and what senior management are doing. Like the board, for
Hmm.
example, like whether it's Kensall, whether it's Ian Gordon, Ron Gordon. Lee Johnson mentioned like historic failings at the football club and not tying Ryan Porteous down on a longer term contract. And I wonder whether Lee Johnson's been on forums or Twitter or whatever, like having a look at what Hibs fans are saying, because by the same token, like we have offered extended deals to other players that we now look
Hmm.
to be moving on, like Jake Dolly Hayes, for example.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure who it was that had the opportunity to sign up Ryan Porteous. Like I don't know whose door you could lay that at. And you could talk about historic failings, but if it predates Ron Gordon, etc., then you can't really say, well, it's fucking Ron Gordon's fault or it's Ben Kensell's fault.
I
But
think
also, you kind of ask the question about like the players that we are signing up to long-term deals because that suggests that we aren't learning lessons.
aye. You would think though at any point over the last 3 years, even if you take Jack Ross, Sean Maloney, Lee Johnson, have all had the opportunity to put a contract in front of Ryan Porteous. And they did do it, like latterly they did it and offered them a lot of money, but it was too little too late. By then I think the consensus was that Ryan thought he could do better elsewhere. Like his comments about wanting to develop as a player, so having to go and challenge himself with better players around him. And that he felt he was stagnating at Hibs, or words to that effect, like a paraphrase a wee bit. He probably wouldn't have felt that 2 years ago. Like if Jack Ross had got him in and said, "You're becoming a key player for us, so we're going to pay you as a key player." Now maybe Jack Ross went to the board and said, Ryan should be getting paid more, give him an extension of his contract. They've maybe looked at it and gone, fuck's sake, he's still got 3 years left, so no, because we can keep paying him this for another year and a half before we actually have to get serious about improving it. Maybe that happened, and maybe they left it too late. Or maybe that conversation never happened with Jack Ross going to the board or Sean Maloney going to the board, but I find it hard to believe that they wouldn't have tried to put him on a better deal earlier.
Yeah, there was
So
something
then,
I was going to say
then
there,
you're
but I
looking at
can't
the
remember
top,
what it was.
maybe. Bring you back to Lee Johnson's comments, John, because again, this was something that has raised eyebrows with the support. Sick of mediocrity, sick of accepting mediocrity. Too many mediocre players, too many players that lack the football IQ and the bravery to do what they need to do on the ball. He was sick of it.
Aye, me too.
Now, well,
I
yeah,
don't think there's anyone in the support that would disagree with those comments.
right. I suppose a couple of things here, right? So Lee Johnson's role in the defeat yesterday. So before we talk about what that means for his relationship with the players, let's strip it back because Lee Johnson, he did say like everybody needs to improve, and he included himself in that as part of his Hibs TV interview. But it's one of these ones you're like, I never ever felt at any point in that interview that he was saying this defeat's on me. And as a manager, I always think that's the first point should be it's my ball, my responsibility. I take full blame for the performance. What we got from him instead was fucking can't work with these cunts. Effectively, I just washed his hands of it. And although you have that sort of token, I include myself in this bit, you never really felt the sense that he actually did. Lee Johnson are sick of players that can't do the basics in a game like this. And then we look at the team that he's put out. Will Fish, right back. So right away you've got a player making his first get his first start for the club.
To the best of my knowledge, yeah.
I think out of position in our biggest game of the season so far. That is like your first one. And then Harry McCurdy, who has done nothing yet to suggest he's going to be the answer, gets a start. And Kyle McGuinness comes out. McGuinness being one of the players that Johnson then later cites as a player that has got the football IQ and the bravery to make something happen. Where do you start with that?
I don't know if you're trying to lead me down a garden path here, Matthew, but I think you've made a couple of really good points. So, Will Fish, I think anyone that's been watching football for long enough, and there was probably a time where I was maybe a wee bit naive and probably thinking he's going to come in and I think he came for Man United, am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
Do you think that he must have a certain amount of skill and talent to have been on their books? And he finds himself at East Road, so you think, actually, like maybe this is the opportunity we poached his sleeve in to put in a standout performance. The much older version of me looked at that and went, fuck me, that's got disaster written all over it. And I didn't say that with the benefit of hindsight. I say that, like, I thought that at the time, like, this is a big game and a big occasion. Is he up to the task, or is he going to be the weak link? And 8 minutes in, his casualness in trying to see that ball to play and not seeing how to play compared to the desire of the Hearts player to win that ball and get into the box set the tone for the game. Like it was, it was just absolutely garbage. And I tweeted something at the time saying that his mistake is on a par with Simon Brown's from what was it? I can't remember what year it was, but the one where he just fucking watched it go into
watched the ball go in.
Yeah, it was scandalous, and it's. I've definitely mentioned it before when we've had games and opportunities to do things, especially games where we could have maybe salvaged the draw. Or I've gone on to win it, and we've ultimately lost the game. It's about doing the right things in clinical moments. So Will Fish sees that ball to play, we don't concede. Mm-hmm. And then after that, like I might be misremembering this, but it felt like a bit of an onslaught from Hearts because we had nothing in response. And the other one was the other clinical moment, I think, was at the other end, where Yuan gets the break of the ball and he's running through on goal. And you just need, like, see if he'd hit it and the keeper saved it, fine. Like, it's not fine. It's perhaps understandable.
Yeah.
But to do nothing, like, he's got a good number of yards on the defender and he allows the defender to close the gap and make what looks like a world-class tackle. And it's their key moments for me that I've been banging on about them since Jack Ross was in charge. Like, they're the things that will change the game. Like, so, like, look at when Will Fish doesn't see that ball out and Hearts bring it back in, they score from it because they have that drive and desire for it because they make the most of those moments and they are clinical with it. And so many times we find ourselves up against teams who are clinical and we are just lackadaisical.
Aye.
Like, just like no bothered.
I think when the boy puts the ball into the box, there's 5 Hibs defenders in there when Marshall parries it out and Shanklin's first it, and you fucking know he's going to be first it. And Will Fish, and what I would say if I was being kind to Lee Johnson, Will Fish making that mistake is not that they were playing out of position. Like as a centre half, you can what you need to do there.
Yeah.
You see the ball out, you either fucking clear it yourself or you get in the road of it so the attacker doesn't get it or whatever. It was just a mistake. But where you would question it is put him in that environment where the game is 100 mile an hour. You know what a derby's all about, or you should know what a derby's all about. And an inexperienced player in that environment would watch the ball and think, that's fine, I can just let this run out and not do
Yeah.
anything to make sure it runs out. Whereas the players with experience at Derby know, fucking can't be dealing, you can't leave it like that. The second goal was a bit of a fucking
Any idea
referee
what happened?
masterclass for Clancy and the VAR. I think they got the right decision in the end. I
I've
think.
not seen it back. I've not seen it back. The ball, like from my perspective, ball hit the back of the net, but I think maybe before that, Rocky's been on the deck. I'm assuming it was him that's been given handball against, and then you've gone through the VAR checks, and then I saw a bit of chat about how I don't know, was there something that happened before the handball or before was someone offside?
There's an offside, but I think what the argument was that the players weren't active. So they were in offside position but not active, and therefore the
Right.
offside isn't triggered at that point. So when the ball hits off Rocky's arm, then that's a penalty. The referee blows his whistle, I think, for a foul anyway before Hearts tuck it away. Otherwise, the goal would have just stood. I would have imagined, but
I think
that's how it
VAR's
ended up a
maybe.
penalty.
I think VAR's maybe a wee bit of distraction because at that point, like Hearts, like the penalty was awarded and they scored, but Hearts had also had the ball in the back of the net despite
Aye,
that. So
yeah,
you're in the same sort of position. You're in that position because of our seeming inability to defend or to put any sort of pressure on them.
Well, again, there's a desire to be first to the ball, which we never had. The boy, I'm not sure if it's Mackay or somebody, knocks the ball back in. He's got a free header. It's in a fucking 18-yarder. Why has he got a free header? Like, how is that allowed to happen in a game like this? It was just so frustrating because 2-0, and I know there's precedent there for with folk that have left at half time. We've come back to get 2-2, but we never looked like getting back into that fucking game. Do you know, even when we did get the chance, like you say, Yuan through on goal, he needs to hit it. He needs to get a shot away or win a penalty or whatever. You know, be good enough to fucking get fouled at least.
So I think this is one of the big differences. So we've had a discussion about Yuan in the past where he's found themselves in positions where he could have had a shot and he's not, and Hibs have ended up losing the ball, and that was the difference in how Hearts had their opener yesterday. Apart from the Willfish mistake and Hearts player capitalising on it, they forced Marshall into a save. He parries it, and then it's an open goal for Shankland.
Aye.
And we couldn't even get the fucking shot away.
No. And then, you know, later in the game, McGuinness has a chance, or a double chance, but it hits it right at the keeper. It makes the keeper look like he's made two fantastic saves, but in reality, he's fucking hit the keeper twice.
Yeah.
It was just I thought the team selection was shit. I think Lee Johnson realised it was shit because the two changes that he changed at half time and brought on McGeady and McGuinness. And we did look a bit better in the second half, but to be fair, Hearts were totally in control of the game at that point. They could let us have the ball because, like a lot of teams are going, can I let Hibs have the ball because they do fuck all with it.
Yeah, I know. I thought that in the first half. Obviously, I left after, like I left pretty much as soon as the Hearts player's boot took the ball away for you, and I went, fuck this, I'm off, see you later.
Aye.
But even at that point, so I never had the benefit of seeing Hibs in the second half, but I thought in the first half, there was just a couple of things. Like I was watching Joe Newell chasing folk, and I thought he was one player that was at least showing a bit of desire in the first half to try and track the opposition down. But then I had a look at Shankland, and Joe Newell's this sweaty mess, hair all over the shop, and it looks like he's putting a bit of effort. And then I'm looking at Shankland, and he just seemed to be strolling, like literally strolling. And I thought, what the fuck is going on here? Like, this is just an absolute shambles.
Aye.
So did I say that McGeady was going to? I think harking back to quite a few episodes ago, did I say that McGeady was going to be Hibs Player of the Season?
You might have done.
Aye.
Joe McGeady was good when he came on. I thought it made a difference. What McGeady did that nobody else was doing at the time was he took the ball and was happy to take the ball and try to make something happen. He wasn't treating it like a hot potato and just try to fucking get at it as soon as it came near him. And too often that's what we've got for Hibs players. Just there's nobody in that team that tries to make something happen. Really, like, it's
It was
like safe options all the time.
definitely evident in the first half where, and if you go back to some of Lee Johnson's comments about how he wanted Hibs to play, like get the ball forward quickly, get the ball in the box, chances, bodies should equal goals. And I don't think we've seen any of that for a while now. But I was watching, like, so some of the safe passes, like there doesn't seem to be a hell of a lot of movement in midfield. So what you end up with is balls going from Stevenson to Hanlon to Rocky to Fish at right back, and then inevitably there's a lack of imagination or a lack of options in front of them. So the ball gets lumped, Hearts win it back, and suddenly you're under pressure again.
Aye, that's a
So
fair.
McGeady might be an answer in
Mhm.
the remaining portion of the season in terms of someone being able to get their foot on the ball like that old head that's able to talk players through a game. We had a chat about this at the game yesterday when we talk about like leaders and things that are missing. Like Marshall's maybe not the player that you want because you want someone that can actually influence the game, and McGeady might be that player. But it's not necessarily that screaming, shouting leader. It's someone that's just like a bit of a wise head, like you're talking about. So
Aye,
whether it's a Snodgrass or whoever else.
it's definitely lacking. Um, so then, like, I mean, you mentioned the midfield and the lack of options, and I've seen it mentioned a few times. Newell, what's the phrase? So Newell run about enough. Lee Johnson says you're running about like ah, busy fools. I think was the expression that he used. Right, it was how he described his team. So not like no concerns about the distance they run, or their fitness or anything, but they're just running about like busy fools. I would contest, right, as good a season as they've had, or he's had, Josh Campbell and Joe Newell. If you're going into a derby with them as your centre midfielders, you're fucked. Like you're not going to win that derby. Like it's almost immaterial who's around them. Them as a central pairing in a game like that, you're setting up to fail. Like I just don't think that was a sensible decision. And then you've got Cadden, playing almost right wing,
Mm-hmm.
or in the right midfield. Stevenson again, like you saw Stevenson and Hanlon getting horribly exposed for the third goal. Accepting mediocrity, sick of accepting mediocrity. Go back to Lee Johnson's thing. Uh, how does he get that group of players back into training tomorrow? Whenever they're back, we've got a big game against Motherwell now on Sunday that we really have to win. He's talked about needing to ship out. He says, I'd rather ship out 10 players and bring in one quality player um, than just have numbers coming in for the sake of it. If you're one of those players that's a busy fool, that's mediocre, that lacks football IQ, that isn't brave enough to take the ball, how's your relationship with the manager coming into training for the build up for the next week? How are you feeling about yourself, John?
Not particularly good. But if I can answer that question, a lot of folk have immediately jumped to let's get Neil Lennon in, or to give him his full football name, Neil Francis Lennon, born winner. Do you remember when he went through the Hibs players? I think it was at Wraith.
Aye.
I can't remember the words that he used exactly, but was it similar? Do you remember that do you
know, I
he
can't.
properly slaughtered them, but I think it had the desired effect because in the next game, ironically, the game was against Hearts, and we did get a result.
Aye, we pumped him. I think he knew exactly what he was doing in that one, though. Um,
And I remember that I think so. To just to carry on my point, I think what people are seeing perhaps is Lee Johnson's comments are very, very similar to Terry Butcher's when he was in charge, and
yeah,
he hung a bunch of players out to dry, and suddenly he found himself in a relegation battle, bringing folk back in relying on folk like Kevin Thompson, who he'd previously slated, ruining careers like Alex Harris's.
aye.
And the worry now is that we're going to end up getting relegated again because the players won't want to play for him. And I don't know, like, I'm trying to try to read between the lines, and I don't know whether Lee Johnson is trying to get himself emptied or not. Like even like the fact that there's been pretty much radio silence for Hibs today makes me wonder whether they're trying to work out a severance package, because based on his comments about historic failings at the club, I think there was mention about the players that you mentioned there.
Yeah.
Too many players, like they're trimming the squad and so on. I don't even know whether he wants to be at Hibs.
We've made
Like
mistakes with recruitment, he said.
yeah. So I suppose what I'm getting at is Johnson's the easy replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Gordon Senior, Ben Kensel, Gordon Junior. I don't think they're going to go anywhere anytime soon. Well, especially the two Gordons. Kensel might find himself out as well. I don't know.
Well, I mean, Ron Gordon, unless he can sell and sell at a profit, he's not going to be washing his hands at Hibs anytime soon, I wouldn't think.
No.
I mean, Ian Gordon's going to have some fucking job to keep his job, because all the evidence that you've got now is stacking up to say that our recruitment, which he is the head of, has been a monumental disaster. We started the game on Sunday with Nisbet, who was already at the club, Newell, who was already at the club, Campbell, Stevenson, Hanlon. 5 out of 11 that have been there, like predating Maloney and Ross. So, and I can't remember off the top of my head who else. Who started, maybe some others in there, but you're relying on a core of players who've already seen several managers sacked.
Yeah.
And we've signed a lot of players. No, like this has been a handful. Hibs have spent a lot of money and wasted a lot of money on recruitment, and you have to then look at the person that's in charge of that and say, where's the value for our money? Like, how do you justify staying in the job that you're doing? What are you bringing to the table? Because we're not seeing it on the pitch. In fact, half the players aren't even getting on the fucking pitch. Like, Melkerson didn't play. Tavares didn't play. Bojang's away. Like, he's gone back to Rainbow FC. In January, McCurdy lasted 45 minutes. Like, where are these players? What's the point in bringing in loads of players and then no fucking playing any of them? If they're not, unless they're not good enough, and if they're not good enough, you have to go back to the transfer committee, the head of recruitment, and say, that's your job, that's what you're accountable for. It's not good enough. We're going to get somebody better in to do it.
Well, the conversation, if you remember that you and Colin and some of the other guys for podcasts, Colin in particular brought up the point about the was it signings, transfers? I can't remember exactly what it was. And Ron Gordon had said it had been a success, and we went back to them with some details to query that position. And if you were to ask that same question again, like Ron Gordon surely couldn't sit there and say it's been a success, because as you say, like, a number of players that have been signed aren't playing, and the guys that have come in since that are playing, so some like Harry McCurdy, for example, or Ely Yuan, it's not working.
No, they're not setting the heather on fire. And I didn't absolve Lee Johnson. And this is another thing that's annoyed me about Lee Johnson's post-match comments, not just in this game, but after Celtic and whoever beat us before we beat Livingston. Like, all these games, he started to kind of distance himself from the recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
Lee Johnson sat and told us he's got sign-off on the players' final say. He told us about how he chased Tavares for years, for example. He knew these players and he was wanting to get them in. This was like a real coup. CWO for the club getting somebody like Tavares, like Nohan Kenna coming in, highly rated youngster from for Leeds, had Premiership teams after him. Did they play yesterday? Biggest game of the fucking season. There's no playing. I just didn't get it. Like, how it's totally contradictory. You can't say on the one hand, I've got final say in these players and these are the ones that I want in, and then 6 months later when it's all gone to fucking shit, say, wash my hands of it, and we've not got players that are good enough here. There needs to be an accountability there to say, I should have done better with recruitment. Not just we've made mistakes, but if he's saying he's got final say on it, he needs to fucking own that and not just wash his hands of it. The Terry Butcher point, right? So actually, Neil Lennon, when you made that point, if I go back to that, I say, like, what's the difference? Neil Lennon, when he did that one against Wraith, it was probably the first time he'd properly slaughtered the players in the press.
Right.
Really, like, he went to town on them, and he got the reaction. When we lost, really, the prospect of finishing second at Tynecastle, ironically under Lennon, who went and shat the bed and changed the team, he came out after that game and hammered the players, went missing for a couple of weeks, or whatever. You know, remember that? It was like just a fucking weird situation. But then into the next season, when it didn't, we won a spectacular straight away, he started to more and more consistently and more regularly criticise the players publicly. and he lost. Well, it appeared like he lost the dressing room. To coin a cliche, right? I mean, I don't like the phrase, but the players didn't respond to it, and they never, or if they did respond to it, they never responded well to it at that point. And it was only a matter of time, really, before Lennon left. I think actually the rumours were that senior players stood up to Lennon for how he was hammering Canberra in a team meeting, or words to that effect. I can't remember if it was the board overhead what he'd said, or something like that. But he just took it too far, too often, and eventually that was him. His time was up, and we were shite under Lennon. That second,
Yeah.
Or the season after, we had like that great 6 months. The football was shite under Lennon. We weren't getting results. We were sitting 8th when he left. Like, we're no better than that now. So a born winner shite. Like, he was good for a wee while. We had a good team, but after that, he fucking lost the plot.
That's interesting, actually, because I think, or I wonder if one of the reasons that folk point to Neil Lennon as being a born winner is because he does publicly call out folk. But actually, when you examine it, you realise that his calling out of players resulted in the same places that we're in now. Like,
Aye.
it didn't achieve anything. Like, and I know that it's maybe like a convenient outlet, or kind of living by, like, I want to say living by proxy. So he's giving the players the bollocking that we want to give them,
Yeah.
but actually it doesn't achieve anything.
The players, I can't imagine the responsibility. So there might be some in that dressing room that go, that's fair enough, I was shite and I have been shite for a wee while and I need to buck my ideas up. But I would generally think, right, if you're sitting as a player, you've got 2-3 years in your contract, and you ken every cunt around about you in that dressing room's got 2 or 3 years left on their contracts, you ken who's going to go first if the change needs to be made, right? I mean, there's nothing surer. You see at football clubs up and down the land, when things start to go wrong, it's not the players that get vetoed and kicked out the club. Or very rarely it is. You might get it if a manager's like really tight with the board. The easy option is to change the manager and try to get somebody else in that can work with him. So I think he's playing a dangerous game and going out and slaughtering the players. And I don't think many Hibs fans would disagree with him. That's the ironic thing. So you watch it and you go, "What? We're sick of watching it as well. Sick of watching a team that can't fucking do anything other than kick the ball away at their face in half the time, or didn't want to take the ball in a place, or they didn't run into space to get the ball. They run in and into places where they can't get the ball, where it's difficult to accept a pass.
Yeah, being busy fools.
Being busy fools. Like, it's horrible watching it. Manager's ultimately responsible for that, though, whether it's through the recruitment, whether it's his coaching, because he also has to instill that confidence and bravery in them. And again, you say players are naturally brave, like they have that instinct, but you can also make somebody who's no confident by having the right conversations or giving them the right coaching, building them up. You can instill confidence in people. You can instill the bravery in people if you give them the tools to go out and do it. And it doesn't look like that's happening. It's just like, I get frustrated. Do you think sacking him's the right thing to do, John, or do you think that it's just the case if you change him, you're going to be in the same position with somebody else in 3 months' time?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Because we. So what? How long's Johnson been in charge? He was appointed in, was it May? But there was a couple of months until he actually. Oh no, sorry. I think he was appointed in May, and then there was a quick turnaround because I seem to remember that there was comments about the games coming up quicker than he would have preferred. Like in the League Cup, he wanted more time to work with them.
Aye, so he pretty much came in just as right at the start of pre-season.
So we are talking like pretty much 7 months in a few days.
Round about that.
Prior to that, Maloney had 5 months, and prior to that, fucking Jack Ross had a couple of years. And like we're not getting any further forward by sacking managers, which is one of my big frustrations. But I do also take people's point that just because you sack the previous guy or the guy before him and the guy before that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try and get better. But clearly there's something very, very wrong at Hibs now in terms of the bodies that were like the playing personnel. We have too many that are not good enough, that aren't getting near the first team. We have, and it feels like we're being sold a lot of shite.
Yeah.
Like we have and it's like you seeing the word projects, but actually like players like, I don't even mean to single them out, and I'm only singling them out because of the hype, if you like, that surrounded him when he came in, like Melkerson.
Yep.
He like seeing that Motherwell game, you would think fucking brilliant. Like it looks like we've got a player on the hands, and we've seen next to nothing from him since. But that's a combination of him being out injured, of playing in a poor team. There was a couple of flashes pre-season, and in the early was it against Clyde we won 5-0. I think he got a goal,
Yeah.
maybe set one up in that game. Like he looks like he has something about him, but we're not seeing the fullness of it. So it feels like a project that might never be realised. Like you might actually just like he might find himself surplus to requirements to get empty during this transfer window. Might go back on loan to Norway and then you'll never see him again.
Aye.
And there's like Tavares as well. Like the whole chat about Lee Johnson having, he's been on Johnson's radar for the last 5 years, and then distancing himself from comments like that. You just think that's a lot of shite. Like, have you just seen this boy and thought like he might do a job for us? We'll get him in. Like, you didn't want guys that look like they could do a job. You want guys that
Can
can
do a
play.
job.
Aye, that can do a job.
Yep. Aye. And so I get there's an element of like bad luck, if you like, in that he did sign players who were first team ready. McGeady, Martin Boyle, experienced players that you knew, proven at this level. So Marshall, McGeady, and Boyle all came in that transfer window. McGeady got injured pre-season. He's only just come back into the team now. Looks like he'll be all right. Boyle injured, out for the season as well. So it's two of your main guys really that he's had to do without. So you go, right, fair enough. But beyond that, like Chibraya was brought in at sort of that mid-range, wasn't he? He was like mid-20s. Chibraya's not getting a game
Fuck,
ahead
I
of.
forgot about the whole 4884 about
Aye,
like the ages and what have you.
he's not getting a game ahead of Stevenson, right? And nae harm to Lewis Stevenson. Like I absolutely adore Lewis Stevenson, and if he's picked next week, I don't really care. Like Stevenson isn't our issue. The fact that we're now, however many years in, haven't recruited better is the issue. Or when we have recruited, because Jabri wasn't brought in to be back up to Lewis Stevenson. He's brought in to be better than him and to play, and he's not getting a sniff.
Yeah.
And again, so you look at who's done the recruitment. Why has that been allowed to happen? And I think we came out of the conversations they're having with the board to Lee Johnson saying, "Listen, we've brought all these boys in. Why are you not playing them?" Because I would be having that if I was the owner and I spent all this fucking money. Why are we sitting eighth? Why are you still relying on these boys? How is he still getting a game when I bought you another one?
Mm-hmm.
I'd be back on the door for I could have had the answers. Yeah, but what the fuck's going on? And this is where I get frustrated. Like I know you were talking about apathy at the start. I'm not apathetic. I'm fucking raging at them. Eh? Like it's almost. Do you know what you can see? Right? How would I describe it? You can see. And I've said this from day one. We're on Gordon and that the intentions are there, and the plan, if it comes together, is really good. Right, and you say that actually there are or could be exciting times on the horizon for us, but the execution of that plan has been so fucking bad that we're going backwards. And actually, you're looking at it and going, "It's all bullshit." Like you've sold us this stuff and executed it so badly that we're now at a point where fans are talking about protest. They're wanting getting rid of a manager, which will be then our fourth manager in 2 years, I think, if that.
Yeah.
Fourth manager in 2 years, folk talking about no renewing the season tickets, cunts walking out of fucking Tynecastle at half time.
It's just
Manager
occurred to me.
describing players as mediocre. Like, I mean, what the fuck is going on?
It's just occurred to me that David Gray is a modern day Jockey Scott in terms of the number of times that he'll be caretaker manager for Hibs.
He's going to be, probably end up with the most games under his belt as a manager, without ever having been a permanent one. And it's not even that. It's like you look at Lee Johnson and the backroom team that he brought in. So Jamie McAllister and Adam Owen are highly rated as well. And they're talking about Jamie McAllister going to be a manager in his own right. The two of them have worked together well at previous clubs. Adam Owen's got a great record. Like it seemed again like it's a solid backroom team that we put together.
Are you reluctant to say coup again?
I was going to say coup, and I was like, I'm not going to. And what have we got to show for it? It's like, I just think I get how I do get how it's so wrong. I do, and I think 90% it boils down to recruitment, and so whatever Hibs have been doing, and I think there's loads of assertions being made about uh, what that setup is like, whether it's the committee, whether it's fucking scouting by football manager or folk going to watch them, whether the manager's got final say or whatever.
Yeah.
However it works, it's failing, and the club is failing as a result.
Yeah. So I think there was something there. You said that if you were Ron Gordon, you were saying like, I'm putting all this money into it, or I'm signing these players, or I'm giving you the money to sign these players, and you're not playing them. Why not? Like that's just fucking pissing money away. But if you remember back to whenever it was talking about, Ron Gordon said something along the lines of like the most important thing about Hibs is the playing staff, because
Mm.
that's the thing that's going to provide results. Results mean points. Points mean prizes. Prize money, whatever it happens to be. And we've got all the stuff that going right off the pitch, and I know that Ron's very proud of that. You know, commercially, like the money is there to sign players, but actually we're fucking spaffing this money on shite,
Yeah.
and not just shite, but shite that isn't playing. So
Mm-hmm.
you're left with, and I think Johnson's right in that respect that he's dealing with two or three different squads worth of players that he's been asked to get something out of. And you can sack Lee Johnson, but the next manager isn't necessarily going to get anything out of that squad of players or that mishmash of a squad plus the shite that isn't playing.
Yeah, I think you'd be hard pushed to find a manager that's going to get much out of this bunch now.
Especially like, I mean, you might do well to get someone that comes in and gives them a wee bit of confidence after the dressing down that being told, or sorry, having been told that they've got no football IQ, that they're busy fools, and whatever else it was that was said about them. So you can maybe look at it for that aspect and look to try and stabilise things for the remainder of the season. But you're still going to find yourself in this position next year with a new manager unless we can sort the recruitment of players out. And
mm,
actually, not just sort the recruitment out, but have someone that can fucking sell the players that we have on the books that I didn't see anyone knocking down the door to try and sign.
no, I mean it's mental. They like bids in for Jake Doyle Hayes, and he's not kicked the ball for us for ages. Like, hi, I mean there's definitely a clear out needing to happen. The squad's too big. Need to get rid of a few players, but he can't. I don't think it's enough just to shed the players. I think he needs two or three bodies in minimum in key positions in that team to make a difference. Otherwise, I could be lucky to see February as Hibs manager, and we'll be lucky to see May as a top flight team.
I thought you were going to say you'd be lucky to see the 6th of January,
Well, I mean, you've got to give
i.e., the
something
end of this week.
at the end of this week. Well, I don't know. I mean, the comments that he made were a real throw down the gauntlet to the board, weren't they? Really, to
Aye,
say,
and I didn't see anything about the Hibs board, but the way that they've removed managers during their time at the club, that makes me think that he is going to see it the week. Why? What in what way are they going to look at that and go, "Who the fuck do you think you are?"
aye,
But
it's 10 defeats in 11 games. Do you know,
well, you take into that, you take that into account as well. Like who who is Ron Gordon going to hold responsible for the what was it, 2 wins in 11?
aye,
Like that responsibility, whether you like it or not, is Lee Johnson's. But
yeah,
then Lee Johnson can quite likely point to it and go, "I've been given shit to work with, and I've signed off on X, Y, or Z, or whatever it happens to be. But actually, there's been fucking draws signed by your laddie,
aye.
who may
That's
or may not be the fucking head of a recruitment committee, and that like that even, do you know, you tie yourself. This is one of the most frustrating things I think of the last, let's call it 12 months. I can't remember the exact time frame. Is the fucking mental gymnastics to try and work out who the fuck is in charge of signing Hibs players. Is it a committee? No, it's not a committee. Aye, but it really is a committee. No, he's kind of like head of it, but in a sort of oversight capacity. Like, just stop making up fucking words. Sign players. Give someone
aye.
overall responsibility. And if they're not up to it, move them on.
I think with that as well, right? And I can't remember if I made this point on here before. If I remember right, from when we've had like a tour of the training centre, right? So maybe going back a couple of years, when they had the folk doing in so there's a wee office, if you like, for folk doing the recruitment. They've got the laptops up, they can watch clips of games, they can filter to get specific stats up for players, not the rest of it. I'm sure it was interns that were doing it. So you're not talking like experienced folk. It's like folk who are learning the job that are in doing it. They're at uni. They're maybe getting put in placement to Hibs to kind of go and practice. But if that's what we're relying on, how good's their eye for a player? Like how good are they gauging? Like this player's stats say that he can make, I don't know, 20 passes a game with a completion pass rated 95%. What's the opposition standard like? What's the quality of the pass like? Are they going backwards all the time? Are they going forwards? Like, do you know, like how
Aye.
would they be able to do that with fucking
No
Robert
disrespect,
Snodgrass
but
running at them? But you
aye.
know what I mean?
No disrespect, but Lewis Stevenson probably had 100% pass completion yesterday to Paul Hanlon. Like it doesn't mean
Aye,
anything really.
that's exactly it. So if you're looking at it and you can filter it, I'm sure these are great tools when they're used, but I think you need folk with experience with an eye for a player to be looking at that as well, saying, "No, no him." Stats are good, but no him. Didn't need to ask me why. I'll tell you why later. Just know him. We need better. So you could look at somebody who's maybe not got quite the same completion rate, but look at like Scott Allen's pass completion rate. See if you look at Scott Allen's pass completion rate, I think it would be that great
It must be stinking, eh? Like
because
especially from his latter period with Hibs.
aye, but Scott Allen when he got a pass right, you were getting a goal. Just a bit. Do you know it was like, or you were getting a chance.
How
That's
many was he involved in during that period? There was the one. Well, did he score? Like set up Jamie Murphy against St Johnstone? There was a few others that he was involved in when he was sort of making his way back from injury. So aye, like those would look fantastic.
aye. But what I'm saying is, if you were just to filter on pass completion, Scott Allen probably drops out the running
Yeah.
as somebody you would consider because you're going, if I could try his little passes it doesn't make, but he tries the passes that are the ones that players with a high football IQ make, the ones that didn't run a bit like a busy fool. They didn't always come off, but fuck it, you need to try them if you're going to get the spectacular, if you're going to do it. And I think that's I don't know, it's just me thinking aloud about the flaws in using that sort of approach if you've not got folk with experience to kind of go and look at it and say, actually, that boy's a player or that boy's not a player.
You'd like to think if that was in place at the time that it's changed since then, because you made a point there about Lee Johnson, Jamie McAllister, and Adam Owen, and how these guys were seen as real coups and they were going to be managers in their own right one day. But their careers could be scuppered by poor information being supplied to them,
Aye?
or that information being supplied to whoever it is that goes out and finds people and like sounds about coming to sign for Hibs.
Mm. Aye.
Like, no disrespect to folk at uni, but like I wouldn't go into a fucking security operations centre and go, oh, I ken what I'm doing, because I don't.
Aye. That's so what I'll caveat that with is that was information from a couple of years ago. Whether that's still the case at Hibs, I don't know. So I maybe been totally unfair, and I apologise to anybody at the club that's fucking listening that's listening and going, "You're talking shite, Matty." Quite possibly I'm talking shite, but it was just a thought I had about it. Right. Anyway, they're conscious that we've been on for a bit. Well, I was going to call you Colin. I was going to call you Ian because that was the name I just read on my phone. And then to stop myself calling you Ian, I nearly called you Colin. And then I remembered you're called John.
Thanks.
Because we've got extra time to record, and we're going to talk about lifespan of Hibs managers as well in extra time, and what benefit we get from changing managers every 18 months. I'll need a spoiler alert for it. But anyway, right. So, viewers talking points. So we asked what's the problem at Hibs and what we would do about it. Jeff Ashton says, as discussed in the card, get rid of Deadwood. If LJ does go, get Keenan, assisted by Big Daz. Play some young lads, get a proper midfielder who can supply bullets for strikers. A centre half, McGinn's behind the strikers, not wide, bench Newell. Ian's got Gladiators ready, which is good. I don't know what the context is for that one, but we'll take it. Iranu, which is the best.
Is it contenders ready maybe for managerial contenders throwing their hats in the
Well,
ring?
no, it's definitely Gladiators it's got there. Anyway, Iranu, which is the best username that I've seen so far, if you get the Shooting Stars
That shooting
reference.
stars.
As
Aye.
I still, in fact, I shouted that at the dog this morning. He was sitting looking at me funny. I was like, Iranu, and he's like, raised his eyebrow. Anyway, Oofavu. Right, so maybe we've all missed something. LJ is a tactical genius. After yesterday, that mob are going to rock up at Easter Road for the cup game, expecting a walkover, and then he'll play a masterstroke and pump them out the cup. Doubtful, like, but maybe just maybe, nah. Marty said was pissed off for the way we lost yesterday, but most of the blame on Ron Gordon. Like others have said, he's doing good business-wise, but on the football side, we're going round in circles. That's the most frustrating part. Are we there yet? That's not a question, that's a username, John, just before you jump in with an answer. So we were a good team to watch just a couple of years ago. Since Leanne left, the recruitment has been shite. I think actually the recruitment's been poor, even like towards the end of our time. I can't remember, like, we were getting total gems there. Jamie Boyd said, get the manager punted. The Hibs are here said, since most of what old school managers used to do is done by others these days, manager is basically a PR guy and motivational speaker. Provided they had good assistants, I look at a female candidate or an ex-player who gets it. Failing that, a selection pattern of podcasters. Would you take the Hibs job, John, if it was offered to us?
Aye.
Can you imagine how quickly you would realise how out of your depth you were with it? Like, that's what I think. I always like, if I could be kind of football manager, you like, you could do, you think you could do the team talk bit, that would be all right. You could probably do some motivational speaking. You think you could pick a team and all the rest of it, but then, right, go and analyse a game. Go and set up coaching to prepare for the fucking weekend's game and all the rest of it. You'd be like, oh, fuck, I think I'm up there. I don't know.
I can't be that hard.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Just pick in the middle. What is it? The rondos or whatever they call them. Just that's training the day, boys. Again, we've done that last week. Fucking shut it. Didn't be a busy fool. Just pass that ball. Control it. Heat it. Second
Do you
ball.
know just
Winners.
do you know just go and like watch other teams play football and then go, right, they played fucking 3-5-2, so we'll play 4-4-2. That'll be fine.
I think in this day and age it's more complicated than that. Maybe it's too complicated. That's where we're going wrong. Maybe we're trying to be too clever, whatever. And then they just need to strip it back and just say exactly like you did there. Guys, I said not heard
When
any
they're on the
rumours.
attack, you're defending. And when we're on the attack, they're defending.
You got it? Right, great.
Right, let's
What
break
about-
for lunch.
What about when we're in transition? Don't talk shite. There's no transition. We're either attacking or we're fucking defending. Get it in your head. Right, we are available for the job anyway, Ron, if you're listening. Guys, I said, not heard any rumours, and to be honest, Ron should go. We ain't a hobby. Said we need a strong-minded manager who drums confidence into players, not afraid to drop a player after poor performance, someone who can actually coach a defence, and we are so weak year in, year out. Aranu again says, clearly LJ has photos of Kensal and the Gordons getting pegged by Anne Budge on the Christmas night out. How do we get them into the public domain so we can get rid of a lot of them and start over? I don't know if those photos exist. I like this one from TG Willis. It said, like most, didn't choose to support Hibs, but at the time I got hooked. They were a great team to watch 50 years ago. Michael said, it was clear we needed to improve centre back and centre midfield last season, and we never. Another manager is going to take the blame for the recruitment team's failures. Gordon said, Ian Gordon and Kensal need to go. Appoint a director of football and let football people run the football side of the club without interference. It's really not that hard. Do you think that last point is right, John? You think it's just a case of getting football people in to do the football side of things?
The evidence would certainly suggest that.
That's a good answer. That's the answer I would go with. Canon Hannon said, sell us to some billionaires from Saudi. That's the only way things will change. Ron got Hibs from Sir Tom Farmer because Ron was the only one interested in Hibs. Therein lies the problem. As big as Celtic and Rangers are, don't see billionaires lining up to buy them either. Dav said, so this is the second out of two. Let's find his first one. LJ might just be a better salesman than a coach, but I actually find myself sympathising with his interviews. At least he's got the bottle to come out and say what we're all thinking. It's the folk above him that need emptied and replaced first before we worry about him. Not to say that him or his staff are blameless in all this, far from it, but I don't think he's our biggest problem right now. We need to get the surroundings, recruitment, etc. right before we work on the on-pitch side of things, or the next man is just as doomed to fail. We've got a question for Calvin here, Calvin Larson from Strong Opinion. He said, how much does the sports analysis stuff play into what's going on? I listened back to the interview you did with Calvin Charlton. When he came in, match analysis was non-existent. Does that explain why we constantly make the same mistakes? Interested to hear your thoughts. You get any view on that, John, about sports analysis playing a part, again, I suppose it comes into who's doing the analysis and how valuable that is, how useful it is.
I can't remember when it was. Someone said that there was it iPads were available for the managers, or there were not. Sorry, not that they were
Players.
available for the managers or the players. It was so that there was like instant feedback that could be given at half time or whatever. They could put the analysts could put like key points for the games and go and show it to the managers, because managers, I think if I remember rightly, Calvin had said that managers have got a really short, not that they've got a short attention span, but there's 45 minutes of a game and they can quite often, like, a lot of stuff will pass them by.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to try and work out how much or how little value the sports analysis stuff that Calvin and his team do, because as we've already said, we don't think that the signs that have come in are up to much, so you can do as much analysis on them as you want. But actually, it's not the analysis that drives the mistakes. It's the players making the mistakes. You can point out the mistakes that the players are making a number of times, but if they're not capable of rectifying it,
Yep.
or performing to a certain level, you're kind of stuck.
Aye, that's analysis is only useful if you can do something with it. Yeah, if it makes a difference. Otherwise, it's just information. Information for information's sake is fucking pointless. But then that comes down to the quality of information. It comes down to the quality of the recipient of that information to be able to do something useful with it.
Nicely put.
Yeah, thanks. Jamie,
I could hear you enunciating there, like I felt you were going into managerial mode at your work.
Aye, just ready to start presenting. Jamie said, "I want to know who the Deadwood is." So from the team that played yesterday, John, and your Lee Johnson, you've said you've got Deadwood in there. Who in that team springs to mind as your Deadwood?
Starting 11, will we go with? Fish. I think he only played yesterday because Pochus was suspended. And I think possibly, there's maybe an argument there that Johnson was pulling a Lennon. You remember when he played the young laddie at Livingston rather than Canberra?
Lewis Allen?
Lewis Allen. I wonder if there's maybe an element of making a statement as if to say, well, this is what I'm left with, so on your head be it. Bashiri, I think, has confounded all of his critics. Like, despite the handball yesterday, I think he's had probably the best start, or the best of most Hibs players.
Aye.
This season.
I rated as a £10 million player by Johnson the other week, so I'm discounting Bashiri from consideration as Deadwood just on the basis that even by Johnson's contradiction standards, to take him from £10 million to Deadwood in the space of a couple of weeks is probably quite extreme.
Which of those two comments do you think Johnson distances himself from in regards to Bashiri? I like Hanlon, but he also becomes a quick scapegoat, sometimes rightly, sometimes unfairly, when the team finds itself in a shite position. I wouldn't say that him or Stevenson are necessarily Deadwood, but like we've talked about it often enough, like there definitely needs to be a replacement. You can't have a guy like Chabraya come in and then Stevenson see off. Like Stevenson's seen off as many fucking left backs as he has Hibs managers.
See, I think Stevenson maybe gets lumped in with Hanlon because they've both been there for so long.
Yeah.
I would say I'll choose my words carefully because I've got nothing but respect and love for Paul Hanlon, Lewis Stevenson, cup winning legends, club legends, been there a long time. If somebody was to point at Paul Hanlon this season and pick out the mistakes that have led to goals, he's got not a bad or a bad highlight reel mistakes that have cost us. If he was in that group, I don't think he would have too many complaints. Stevenson, I think, on the flip side, hasn't let us down. I don't think he's improving us. He's not going to take us where we want to be. But you know what you're getting for Stevenson. I don't think you can say the same about Hanlon this time. So I would probably separate the two of them in this case and say Hanlon is one of the players that Johnson's talking about. Stevenson isn't. Chabraya is.
Right.
Well, he wasn't in the starting 11, but that probably sums up like why he's not in the starting 11. And I like Chabraya as well, which is the other thing I was impressed with. I was surprised he's not kicked on at Hibs.
Yeah. I think Chris Cadden might be, let's call him, safe at the moment, because I do think that despite some middling performances this season so far, I think there's still a player there, and
Yeah.
he's maybe there's a bit of confidence, or maybe he's just been slowed down by a bit of a shitey team at the moment. Not sure about. Do you know what? I really like Josh Campbell, and I think from some of his early season performances, I think you need to take them into consideration. I don't think he's deadwood. Again, I think he's maybe struggling in a shite team, and also is a quick candidate to point out and say like you're one of the issues. Joe Newell, as much as I like him, I remember saying this about Bashiri when, like, before we signed them, saying that it might have been better for Bashiri if he moved on.
Hmm.
Joe Newell is Joe Newell's had a really hard time of it ever since he joined Hibs. Like under Heckenbottom, he was out in the wing. He looked like he was blowing at his arse at times, but he was never a winger. And there was a couple. There are times, and he has that criticism where he does have that good game, but then he also has like games where he has less of an influence. And I don't know if that like is that something that just continues to surround him amongst the support. Like, do we need something fresh in there, like someone that doesn't have that managerial, that performance baggage that comes with it?
Yeah.
I forget who was out on the left yesterday. Was it Yuan? It
Yeah,
was Yuan.
you are McCurdy in this, but I think another
I don't
other
know.
three.
I don't know how many chances like in the last few days, last few games, you've seen some of the best of Yuan and some of the worst of them.
Hmm.
And yesterday was probably and like his inability to pull the trigger. Just fuck me. It is so frustrating. Like to be in that position, like to be a striker and not have a shot at goal. What are you doing?
Aye. How good a chance are you actually wanting to get?
Like one on one with the keeper, it reminded me of some of the worst actually of Kenny Miller. Like he seemed to really struggle one on one, but also like he was also able to put the ball in the back of the net other times. And Yuan has done that so infrequently. McCurdy is it's pretty soon. Like I kind of see why people think that there's maybe a player in them because he's a bit. I'm going to say character because I can't think of another word for him. But he's probably had more haircuts than he has had shots on goal,
Aye.
and that's not a good omen for him.
It's not at all.
Nisbet, I think, is also probably exempt because since he's come back, he's obviously had a couple of goals. I thought he looked all right first half yesterday. In fact, sorry, I thought he looked all right. There was one moment, I think, like one chance, I think, where he got the ball and he was able to sort of turn the Hearts defender and try and like take the ball forward. But again, like he seemed to be playing pretty isolated,
Yeah.
and we know from experience that that is not Kevin Nisbet's best position. So I think there's definitely still a player in this bit. Like I don't think he's suffered too badly for the injury and the surgery and his rehab. He still looks to be a really good asset at Hibs. But we could also find ourselves quickly losing him unless we can put a team around him.
Aye. But that's a big worry for me is that the good players that we have got there, and there are a few, don't want to be there because it's so negative and so bad.
Like, I wonder
At
if
the minute.
that's one of the reasons why Porteous has kind of run things down as much as he has. And he just looked at it and went, oh, fuck this, I'm off.
Aye, wouldn't surprise me at all. Right, last two because we were kind of running out of time. Vince Robinson said, "Sorry, but spin the bottle selection and tactics. I've seen enough. Given Snodgrass the freedom of Tiny yesterday was the last straw." Kenny Murphy said he pretty much implied before kick-off yesterday on BBC Sports Sound that neither Fish or McCurdy were his signings. For all his faults, it's good that LG is letting us know, not that we didn't, that the recruitment is shambolic. Aye, so thanks for everybody else who sent tweets in. We just don't have time to get to them all tonight. Pretty disappointing. No, very disappointing. I think what's annoying is I don't know how many people actually expected us to win yesterday. But I think the manner of the defeat and then the fallout from it, and the fact that it's like what do we say, the 10th defeat in 11 games, has just exasperated everything. It feels, John, that this is like a real critical moment for Hibs. And
Second half at Ibrox, game against Celtic, game against Hearts, we just did not compete
aye,
at all. And that's like, you can talk about gulf in finances, quality that, comes off the back of those finances, but there's simple things that we're just not doing. And it's fucking torture to watch.
it has, it's really bad. And I think the overriding feeling is that something needs to change, and without that change, I think the support's only just going to get even more and more disenfranchised with everything, disengaged, more annoyed. I think the hostility towards the club, when I speak of the club, I mean in the players, the manager, the owner, the directors, etc. Everybody that's kind of got a key role at the club is just going to grow, and the noise around it is just going to grow. I think that we talk about how needing leaders on the pitch. I think Hibs need leaders off the pitch right now. They come in and say, right, actually, we're going to do something fucking spectacular to address this slump and this decline. And whether that's a director of football coming in, whether it's moving on people that are in key roles, whether that's the manager, the recruitment team, whoever, they need to do something and bring in people and strategies in place to make us better, to get folk back on side, because otherwise this season's already feels like it's written off.
I've got whether I think I don't know who it was. Sorry, that made the point about just lulling Hearts in a false sense of security and we'll pat them at the cup. At the moment, I've got zero belief that we're going to do that, and I think it's irrelevant anyway. Like you're not going to lose a league game in favour of a cup game or whatever. At the moment, it doesn't look like we've got the beating of them because we can't string passes together. We've got players that, well, we talked about it before. We're just there's no cohesion between anything at the moment.
No, they're conceding too many goals. We're not scoring enough goals. It's a fucking fatal combination. Recruitment shite. It's all gone to shite. That's my summary. It's all gone to shite, John.
Accurate.
Right. Aye. I was going to say, check out our Twitter. We've got the Twitter Spaces that was recorded post-match as well. If you want to get some other fan reaction, you can go and find that on Twitter. You can have a listen.
See if you can spot the part where Matty fell asleep.
I just go quiet. Let's go quiet for ages. Colin takes over. It was fucking great. He actually did a much better job than me as well, which I should point out. Maybe just get him on them all the time. For subscribers, we're just going to record extra time. We're going to talk about the lifespan of Hibs manager and what benefit we get from essentially sacking a manager every 18 months. So if you're a subscriber, and you can subscribe by going to our Twitter, going to our profile, click the wee link there, £3 a month. You'll be joining a great bunch of folk who already subscribe, supporting the podcast and getting extra content for that money as well. Getting them ad free, getting them early. Subscribers will get this episode tonight. Everybody else will get it them on. So it's well worth it. Anyway, right, thanks for sending in tweets. Thanks for following us, and we'll speak to you soon. Cheers.
County line I pledged upon. Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee.